The link to the story will be in the description.
Accidental Companions by Winschild 8178. Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto. Simple as that. Warning: rape will be in this story, however I am not a disgusting pervert and thus will have only the barest of details that will only be there for the storyline to take place. No bodily descriptions of private parts or in-depth lines on sex. One more thing, I'm not describing male on male. The rapist is a female for my sanity's sake. Males are more violent, females more manipulative. It's very rare but works well with the way I've done the story. I intensely dislike fanfics that include rape just for the sake of describing body parts and sex. This is from a far more of a psychological standpoint. Other warnings include abuse and cutting. This story will almost always be in the point of view of Kakashi's dog. There will be few moments that Kakashi, Naruto or someone else's views are seen. Chapter 1. To speak or not to speak. I'm not talking to him. It would make things a lot easier if you would. That imbecile of a student will drive me insane if I do. Naruto isn't nearly as bad as you think, Guko. Kakashi, along with his 8 dogs, made their way along the roads of Konoha to the bridge that he and his team meet at every day. At the moment, Kakashi was in a tight spot with 3 of his dogs, Pakun, Yuhei and Guko, out of commission due to injuries with a month-long mission ahead. Therein lies Kakashi's brilliant plan. If he couldn't take care of 3 of his precious dogs while he was gone, then why not have his 3 precious students do it for him? Pakun rode atop bull. His little body burned a bit from a fire jutsu Kakashi didn't expect from the water-wielding missing nin. Yuhei, his only female dog, winced every few steps, her injury being nothing more than an ear infection but enough that she could not go on the mission and needed someone to take her to her checkups. Then there was. Why'd I have to go with the idiot? Can't one of the others go? Guko whined pitifully from within Kakashi's arms. The dog had broken his back leg when he'd miscalculated the strength of a tree limb while they'd been on the trail of the said water-missing nin. Kakashi took a deep breath and then a smaller one just to be sure. Because Sakura is not strong enough to carry you to your vet appointments or anywhere for that matter. Yuhei is the only one with no way to communicate in the human language, so she will go with Sasuke because Sasuke is not absent-minded enough to forget something. Despite his size, Naruto can easily carry you and you will be able to remind him when he's forgotten something. Kakashi explained for the 3rd time that morning. I'm not talking to him, Guko repeated. If he knows I can talk he will drive me insane with useless babbling. Kakashi sighed. Then I guess if he forgets to feed you, you will starve, Kakashi said bluntly. Guko huffed and buried his head deep into Kakashi's chest for warmth. It was November after all, and even the Fire Nation got quite cold from November to January. Besides, Kakashi added with an eye smile, Naruto talks to everyone whether they can hear or understand him anyway. You have to remember that Naruto's been alone all his life. I often find him talking to himself while he trains just to fill the air with noise. I think it's just his way of trying not to feel too lonely. Kakashi said the last part quietly and assumed Guko got the point when the dog felt no more need to complain. When Kakashi arrived at the bridge, it was to find, to his vast amusement, Sakura atop the rail trying to engage an irritated Sasuke in conversation while he stared down at the river below and a fast-asleep Naruto with chin to his chest and his back to the pole. It was to be expected on a Monday. Naruto did God knew what on the weekends and always slept while waiting for the lazy Junin to arrive. The rest of the week Naruto would be wide awake, but Mondays were, as the boy put it, death warmed up just for me. Always the optimist of the group, Team 7 was caught off guard by the solemn phrase one early Monday morning when they'd first become a team. So caught off guard were they that Sakura cracked up laughing, Sasuke nearly tripped and Kakashi stopped walking to stare at the miserable blonde. Needless to say, they never once questioned why Naruto immediately fell asleep every Monday. They just went with it. Everyone deserved at least some time to be in a dark mood after all. Good morning, team, Kakashi called out cheerily. Sasuke peered over at him with a thankful expression as Sakura's attention was pulled away from the Uchiha. Sakura blinked several times and checked her watch. You're only 10 minutes late, she said, surprised. The dogs yipped happily and skipped over to the pair. Sakura immediately bent down to scratch behind Shiba's big ears. Sasuke cocked an eyebrow at the dogs, hand unconsciously scratching Urushi on the head. What's up, Why'd you summon your dogs, Kakashi? Sasuke asked. Kakashi's eyes smiled. Sasuke always called him by name while Sakura merely called him Sensei, and Naruto called him Kaka-sensei. It displayed their personalities perfectly. Sasuke with his hint of arrogance even while addressing a superior, yet the clear respect he held for the Junin that Kakashi could detect through the boy's tone. Sakura's formal show of respect underlying the fact that she called all other Junin senseis as Gai-sensei, or Kurenai-sensei, indicated that he was her team leader and therefore the one she most respected. And then there was Naruto. The slightly short and disrespectful nickname, Kaka, combined with sensei, was perhaps the name he was most fond of. He had noticed that Naruto only gave disrespectful titles to those he was closest to, Iruka being the exception to the rule because Naruto would never disrespect his father figure in such a way. It simply wasn't done. Due to the nature of his birth and the consequences afterward, Naruto had been forced to learn everything about normal behavior on his own and thus had come up with several wrong conclusions. It took Kakashi a full year of working with Naruto to correct some of those habits, and yet he still found some of the things the blonde did completely bewildering. Bull lumbered over to the still dozing Naruto and licked the boy's face to awaken him. Naruto cracked his eyes open tiredly and yawned loudly, arms outstretched above his head. Naruto patted Bull's head dazedly before peering around and catching sight of the other 7 dogs in his team. "Yo, sleeping beauty," Pakun called with a raised paw from the back of Bull's head. Naruto smiled crookedly at the small dog. "Mornin' to you too," Naruto said with a bit of a laugh as he got to his feet slowly. Kakashi nodded toward Naruto. "Now that we're all awake, I tell you why I brought them along today. It's because you 3 will be watching over 3 of my dogs while I'm gone on a mission," Kakashi chirped happily. All of his students greatly enjoyed it when he summoned his dogs to aid in a mission after all. The statement enlisted a variety of reactions. Sakura stopped scratching and looked up. "For how long?" she asked happily. Sasuke sighed in a bored-like manner but couldn't completely hide a small smile. Naruto surprised him by biting his lip and tilting his head forwards a bit, allowing the shadows in his bangs to hide the sight of his eyes. An action Naruto did only when he was displeased or upset about something and didn't want anyone knowing. "My mission should last from about 4 to 5 weeks, so about a month. I have scrolls of instructions for each of you and money for dog food and supplies. All of them should be healed in a couple weeks so they can even assist you on missions after that if they feel up to it," Kakashi said as he pulled out 3 scrolls. Naruto bit down on his lip hard enough to draw blood, but with a small flourish of his arms as he brought them to rest on the back of his neck, the trail of blood was gone. "What was that?" Kakashi wondered. "Sakura, you will be taking care of Pakun," Kakashi said as he handed the scroll to her. She frowned a bit, remembering the comment from the small dog about how they used the same shampoo, and sighed. The weeks ahead were going to be very long indeed. "Sasuke, you will be taking care of Yuhei," Kakashi said as the bandaged dog ambled over to him. Sasuke nodded, but felt a little annoyed that he'd somehow managed to get the only female dog in the entire pack. Kakashi turned to Naruto, who smiled at him broadly, eyes narrowed far enough that Kakashi couldn't see them, and hands in pockets. "I want you to take Guko here," Kakashi said, nodding toward the disgruntled dog. "Hey Kaka-sensei, I don't remember, can he talk?" Naruto asked, still with his too big grin. Guko gave Kakashi a warning growl from within his arms and Kakashi inwardly sighed in exasperation. "No, so you won't be able to talk to him while he's with you," Kakashi said. The other dogs gave Guko an irritated stare, but the injured dog ignored them. Kakashi felt himself staring at Naruto in question when the small blonde's entire body language suddenly dropped all of its bounded-up tension. It was a small change, but enough for the Junin to notice as well as the dogs around them. "Oh really? That's too bad. It would have been way more fun if he could talk back," Naruto said with a laugh as he took the dog and scroll from Kakashi's arms. Kakashi stood back and glanced at all 3 of his students with a bit of pride. They would be fine without him and would all take good care of his dogs. There was no doubt about that, even if Guko was being a brat. "Tsunade will limit you to D and C rank mission near the village while I'm gone, and you will be paid out of my own pocket for the amount of 2 C ranks for taking care of my dogs, 1 C for every 2 weeks. If I'm gone a 5th week, let's just say that you love me enough to do that for free." The copy Nin and his 5 remaining dogs disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Typical, Sasuke, Sakura and Naruto muttered under their breaths before saying goodbye to each other and heading home. 3 months ago the Chunin exams ended in a small war with sound and sand. Tsunade had been in office for a month and a half now as the Godem Hokage, and 2 days ago Naruto's refrigerator finally broke down on him and died. An event that the blonde had been dreading for the last 6 months. When Naruto entered his home with Guko in his arms, who was sleeping peacefully in the blonde's surprisingly warm arms the whole way, yawned and stretched his neck back and forth to wake up properly. Guko cracked his eyes open and peered around the small apartment in interest of the place he'd be staying for the next month. What he found greatly surprised him. There were plants everywhere, a large one in every corner with vine-like plants hanging from the ceiling and small ones on the counters and in the middle of the run-down table. A few held flowers on them, but for the most part it was just a lot of green and leafy plants. Kakashi devotedly watered a plant in his apartment that Naruto had given him sometime during the first couple months Team 7 had been formed, so the dog knew that Naruto liked plants, but this seemed a bit over the top. That's when the dog came to a second conclusion. The place, despite the numerous plants, was incredibly bare. The plants were literally the only objects in the apartment. No picture frames, no trinkets of any sort, only the occasional bill sitting on the table or a shelf. Guko imagined, because he still didn't want to talk to Naruto and thus couldn't ask, that the plants were there to fill up space and force the bare apartment to have some life. Naruto walked past all of them and pushed aside a curtain that had covered a doorway. Guko discovered that it led to Naruto's room. The blonde gently placed the dog on his small bed, making sure that the furred animal was placed on the largest bulk of covers there. Guko took a peek around, noticing that the place seemed like a cocoon. Unlike the previous kitchen, living room he'd been in, the small room seemed to have all of the possessions Naruto ever owned. Atop the dresser beside the bed by its lone self sat a picture of Team 7, and around the bed sat an array of weapons and scrolls. Above the bed sat a poster with the symbol of the leaf and the Fire Nation that, if he remembered correctly from what Pakun said about Kakashi's academy days, was given to each and every student for free. Pakun was the oldest of the dogs and had been with Kakashi since the man's childhood, while Guko had been born while Kakashi was in his mid-teens. Guko felt his eye twitch. There were more plants too, one in every corner and a couple hanging from the ceiling. Guko watched Naruto sigh heavily as the blonde walked into the bathroom with a bowl and come back out with it filled with water. Instead of setting it on the floor though, Naruto set it down on the wide windowsill so that the broken-legged dog could easily get to it. Guko would admit he'd expected the blonde not to consider his leg and felt a bit grateful. Naruto sighed again and sat on the bed, scratching Guko on the head in a rhythmic fashion. How am I going to do this? Naruto half asked the dog, half asked himself. Guko cocked his head to the side and looked at the blonde shinobi. Naruto fell back onto his bed beside the dog, eyes trained on the ceiling. I can't just leave you here all the time, but... Naruto turned his head till he stared at him, the dog fidgeting under the slightly dull stare. Naruto sat up quickly and let his arms fall into his lap, staring at the floor. I could take you to the place I train all the time but leave you here when I go to work. Naruto said thoughtfully and peered back as if he expected Guko to either agree or disagree. Not likely, thought Guko with a snort as he turned away from the blonde. Naruto grinned at the dog and shook his head. He, so you don't like me either, huh? That's okay, not many people do, or animals I suppose in your case. Naruto said as he stood up. Guruko's ears went back against his skull at the blonde's words. I just don't want to be talked to death is all, Guruko thought. You're a nice enough kid, you're just a loud mouth too. Well, I'm going to go train. Do you want to come with? Naruto asked, watching closely for the dog's reaction. After all, he was still one of Kakashi's dogs, even if Naruto thought he couldn't talk. The dog shoved his head under the covers and placed his butt specifically in front of Naruto. Naruto sighed and Guko heard the blonde quietly gather some things and head towards the door. I'll be back in a few hours, Naruto called back, and with that the front door closed. Guko raised his head as he heard the door open at 5 that night. Naruto walked into the room covered in a layer of sweat and dirt, but with a content aura around him. You hungry, Guko? Naruto asked as he pulled off his jacket and put it in his dirty laundry. Guko sat up and wagged his tail happily. He was starving, The blonde didn't leave anything for him and he was too stubborn to remind the blonde. Naruto laughed and picked the dog up, easily carrying him into the kitchen despite the fact he'd just gotten back from a long training session. Naruto set him on the ground and headed to his cabinets, opening one up and pulling out a bag of jerky. Guko yipped happily but frowned as he poured only half the bag into a bowl and left the other half on the table. It wasn't much, especially since he hadn't eaten all day. Naruto patted his head and left to take a shower. Guko ate all of it quickly and stared irritably at the empty bowl as the sound of the shower could be heard from the background. When Naruto walked through the kitchen door running a towel through his hair, Guko growled at the blonde, startling him enough to drop the towel onto the floor. Guko pushed his bowl forward as the blonde stared at him, causing the blonde to give a snort of amusement. Naruto grabbed the other half of the jerky bag and poured the rest of it into the bowl. Guko wagged his tail and munched happily as Naruto sat down at the table with a sigh. Guko watched out of the corner of his eye as Naruto folded his arms and laid his head down, watching him as he ate. "Why's he staring at me?" Guko asked himself in annoyance. As Guko finished up, Naruto bent down and picked up the empty bowl. "I wasn't really hungry anyways," Naruto muttered to himself. Guko froze and stared at him. He'd eaten Naruto's dinner? Why doesn't he just get something else then? Guko thought, trying to ignore the guilt he felt. Naruto sighed again. "Well, I'll go ahead and pick up your dog food tomorrow and go shopping while I'm at it," Naruto told the dog, whose unasked question was unknowingly answered. Guko gave a guilty start that went unnoticed by the blonde. As Naruto cleaned the bowl, Guko noticed something. Naruto was wearing black. In the last year there was a number of times Kakashi summoned his dogs during missions and once in a while just while the team trained for enjoyment. In all those times Guko never once saw Naruto in anything but orange, so the sight set him off balance. It was simply a pair of black pants, perhaps a little big on him, and a black short-sleeved t-shirt. Naruto finished up and walked into the room, coming back out with a bandana and black bandages. Naruto gave a small smile as the dog cocked an eyebrow at him. "You totally look like Sasuke right now," Naruto told him. Guruko's ears went back in displeasure at the comment and Naruto broke out in laughter. Naruto sat down and tied the bandana over his head, making sure to cover every strand of the straw-colored hair. "I'm going to work," Naruto told the dog as he began to tie the bandages around his face. Guko stared at the blonde in question. "You don't have your headband, so what work will you be doing and why are you covering your face?" Guko thought to himself. As Guko continued to watch, he noted that it wasn't his entire face but just his possession marks that the blonde was covering. As Naruto tightened the bandage and let the ends hang from the back of his neck, he caught the dog staring and smiled. "People easily recognize me from my possession marks. As long as I cover my hair, don't wear orange and hide my marks, I'm able to walk around like any normal civilian and get a job like any normal civilian." Naruto added the last part as an afterthought. "You work 2 jobs? Guko blinked in surprise. Naruto walked away from the dog and pulled on his shoes. "I'll take you out to go to the bathroom real quick and then head out after I bring you in." "Sound good?" Naruto asked as he picked the dog up and headed out. "I have 3 other legs I can walk on, thank you. I don't need to be carried all the time." Guko thought irritably, though still too stubborn to say anything out loud, and admittedly very comfortable anyways. Guko limped back and forth, eyes watching the clock wearily, tick-tock. It grated on his nerves more and more with each glance. 12 hit not but a few minutes ago and the dog was irked. Naruto was not home yet and Guko was irritated. Okay, he would admit only to himself, he was worried. Forget the fact that Naruto was a shinobi and an orphan that had lived on his own his entire life. He was still only 13. He shouldn't be out at all hours of the night. The door creaked open and Naruto walked in with a large yawn. Guko stopped pacing and growled at the blonde, who gave him a sheepish grin. "Satoshi wanted me to mop the floors in the back before I left," Naruto half explained. "And I'm supposed to know who the crap Satoshi is?" Guko silently glowered. Naruto shrugged and patted him on the head before heading into the bedroom. Guko limped behind him and watched as the blonde took off everything but his pants and t-shirt. "So, would you rather the bed or the floor?" Naruto asked jokingly. Guko smirked and limped over to the bed where he sat purposely beside it waiting to be picked up. Naruto's sweat dropped. He, I gave that to you, didn't I? Naruto asked as he rubbed the back of his head. Naruto pulled off one blanket from his cocoon and dropped it on the floor before gently placing Guko on top of his bed. The dog snickered as Naruto laid down on the ground. Yeah, just you wait. I'll get the bed tomorrow and then you'll be sleeping on the floor," Naruto said as he turned off the light and curled up on the blanket, closing his eyes for the night. Guko stared down at the blonde for a long moment before also closing his eyes. "You're not as bad as I thought. Rays of light could be an evil thing, especially when you lie on a bed that's directly beside a window that's wide open." Guko growled in irritation, knowing who pushed the window open. It was this very same evil window opener that could be heard humming in the kitchen. Guko barked loudly, telling the blonde that he was awake and wanted down. Naruto walked in, orange pants and fishnet shirt on, and walked over, only half paying attention and quickly but gently put the dog on the ground. The blonde walked right back into the kitchen with Guko limping behind him. There was a large bag of kibble on the table and a single thing of meat that Naruto was preparing to cook. Guko looked at the clock and bulked. It was only 7 in the morning and the boy obviously had been awake long enough to pick up food for him. Naruto continued to hum a, admittedly beautiful, tune as he pounded the meat and carefully cut out the bone. Naruto placed the frozen bone into Guruko's dog bowl before sticking the meat into the oven to cook. When Naruto finally noticed the dog in the room, he gave a small smile. "I figured since I forgot to give you some food yesterday afternoon, I'd go ahead and cook you something before I left as an apology," Naruto said happily. Guko nodded in approval as he pulled out bone from bowl and started to gnaw on it. "After I take you out, I'll be going on a few D ranks with Sasuke and Sakura. When I get back, probably around 4 maybe 5, I'll give you some more food and take you out again. I leave every night for my other job about 6 and don't usually get off till 11, so I won't be able to spend a lot of time with you," Naruto explained as he poured himself a cup of tea. "Tomorrow is a training day though, so I'll take you with me. Sakura is going to help me with chakra control and Sasuke is gonna help Sakura with weapons aim. You also have a vet appointment on the Inuzuka compound at 6, so I'll have to be a little late for work to take you, which means that I'll also be staying later than normal." Naruto's stomach gave a rather large roar, but the blonde ignored it as he continued to sip at his tea, though there was a bit of a blush on his cheeks. "Hasn't he eaten anything since yesterday afternoon?" Guko thought worriedly as the dog remembered he'd eaten Naruto's portion of dinner last night. Guko limped over to Naruto and lightly tugged the orange pant leg till Naruto looked down at him. Guko whined up at him, his meaning obvious. "I never eat breakfast," Naruto answered him, at which Guruko's ears went back against his skull. Naruto softly stroked the dog's head as he continued to whine. "Eating food before 12 upsets my stomach," Naruto answered in amusement. Guruko's first impression that Naruto liked to talk just for the sake of talking was correct. The entire time they waited for the meat to cook, the blonde told the dog about a few good pranks he'd pulled at the academy and on some of the villagers, but they were much more amusing tales than Guko would ever admit. For one thing, because Naruto believed Guko could not talk back, the blonde was much more honest about failed attempts and even admitted to quite a few hilarious screw-ups. And for another, Naruto spoke as if he expected to be ignored, so the persona Guko gauged was much darker and sarcastic than the blonde that belonged to Team 7 knew. In the end, Naruto cut up the finished meat, put it in his bowl and left the dog for a busy day. Guko sat beside Naruto that night as the two ate dinner together. Guko chewing his kibbles up while Naruto ate a big bowl of plain white rice. Apparently, as he would discover while sniffing around, Naruto had bought a bag of white rice to match Guruko's dog food. It sat slumped against the wall right next to the kibbles, taunting the dog. There was no food in the cabinets or in the refrigerator, as Guko found out when Naruto got home. Just a big white bag of rice, the only thing cheaper than ramen, and definitely not something that you could live off of. Naruto had explained to him that his refrigerator was cop-out, that he didn't have the money to replace it, nor would he at any time in the nearby future. The blonde would pick up some meat on the way home every other day for him, as Kakashi instructed was the normal diet his dogs received, though simply raw meat instead of cooked. Guko watched Naruto slowly eat from the corner of his eyes and wondered how long it had been since Naruto had eaten anything outside of ramen or white rice. Guruko had decided that since Naruto was more open because he believed he could not talk, that he would remain silent to see what else he would need to report to Kakashi when the man got back. He did not like this situation at all. Wasn't the landlord supposed to replace such things as a refrigerator if they broke? Kakashi's landlord always did, and the dog had assumed it was supposed to be that way for everyone. After dinner, Naruto got dressed in his other work outfit and left. Just as he did the night before, Guruko waited up for the blonde, but this time slept on the floor. Guruko woke up to screaming. The dog jerked awake, searching for the cause of alarm, and found it to be Naruto. The blonde turned his face into his pillow, trying to muffle the sounds with hands clenched so tight around his bedsheets that the knuckles were white. Guruko looked around trying to find an assailant, and finding none, searched the short blonde for injuries, of which none were evident. Naruto screamed in agony once more, but at the same time trying desperately to keep the sound in, to keep quiet. Guruko stared in shocked as Naruto pulled out a kunai and shoved the handle into his mouth. The screams sounded much softer now, but no less horrible to watch. Guruko leapt onto the bed, his leg causing him a good deal of pain and causing him to fall more than land on the sheets. Naruto was sitting up, arms tight around his sides, with an intense look of pain in his eyes. Guruko whimpered as he tried to figure out what was wrong and why Naruto was trying to hide his screams. The dog limped up to Naruto and licked the blonde's face, but shrank back a little at the intense heat the boy was exhibiting. He definitely had a fever. What could he do? Kakashi was gone. The front door was locked, the windows shut tight, and he'd never make it to another shinobi's house with his leg. Naruto's grip on his midriff suddenly tightened as another large scream escaped from around the piece of metal, his body leaning forward till the preteen's sweaty forehead touched his knees. Guruko nuzzled against the blonde, feeling the boy shaking against him. What's going on? The dog thought in panic. Naruto screamed for 2 long hours before the pain seemed to lessen considerably. The kunai dropped out of Naruto's mouth dully as the boy tried desperately to get his breathing back under control. Guruko took up the kunai, dropped it off the side of the bed, and then the dog sniffed Naruto hesitantly as a final check. He didn't smell sick, which was what confused the dog so much, because he had a fever. There was no explanation for the pain either. A fever didn't cause pain like that. Naruto coughed harshly for several long minutes before he gave the dog a weak smile, body falling limply against the sheets again. Thanks, Naruto croaked in a hoarse whisper. What's wrong, brat? Guruko asked, but Naruto didn't hear it. He was already fast asleep. Guruko slipped in as close to the blonde as he could, Naruto's face dipping into his side and one still shaking arm gently wrapped around the dog's small body. He did not like this. No, Guruko did not like this at all. Chapter 2. The people in the apartment building are so nice. Guruko gave an irritated growl when the alarm clock went off later that Wednesday morning, since he'd never actually gone back to sleep after Naruto's attack. The dog lunged at the beeping machine and bit deep into it until the thing died away. When he heard a small groan, Guruko quickly turned back to the blonde he'd been lying next to. Naruto turned his head towards Guruko with a tired expression. I hate it too, but buying a new alarm clock is going to cost me money, you know. Naruto said softly. Giving a guilty start, Guruko moved closer and nuzzled Naruto's cheek, checking the small blonde for the high fever he'd possessed last night and almost all morning. Naruto stroked the dog tiredly as he did this, a small smile of amusement on the preteen's face. I'm okay, Naruto assured him as he sat up. The dog growled a warning at the blonde, angry that he would try to get up so soon after being in so much pain. Naruto gave the dog a pat on the head, but otherwise ignored the obvious reprimanding. Shush, it's not a big deal, Naruto told him. It happens 2 or 3 times a week. I'm not dying or in any kind of danger from it. Just a lot of pain. Nothing I can't handle. Guruko's body tensed at the blonde's words, visibly shaken by the revelation. Kakashi would have a fit when he finds out. How long had it been going on? Naruto stumbled out of bed, taking a few moments to balance himself and take a steadying breath. The blonde turned to Guruko with hands on hips, eyes wearily watching the dog that stared back. There's not any kind of dog Morse code out there that you can use to tell Kakashi about this, is there? Naruto asked suspiciously. Guruko almost flinched, but thanks to some of Kakashi's personal training managed to keep it at bay. Guruko shook his head. which caused Naruto to sigh and mutter under his breath, something along the lines of, "Just like Kakashi." Naruto picked up the dog and brought him into the kitchen with him before proceeding to carry on normally by pouring Guko food and water, then putting the pot on for tea. Guko watched all this in morbid fascination, eyes carefully trained on the blonde to make sure he didn't suddenly fall to the ground screaming. When the kettle whistled, Naruto hurriedly poured the tea, adding only a little of the precious sugar into the cup. Naruto then carefully sat down at the table, a slight wince escaping that caused Guko to immediately jump to the preteen's side, eyes imploring. Naruto took a long breath before letting it out and looked down at Guko, who stared up at him in alarm. "Really, you don't have to act like a mother hen. The pain lingers a little, but by the time we get to the training grounds with Sasuke and Sakura it will be completely gone." "You're not going," Guko thought to himself. It wasn't obvious. In fact, if you weren't looking for it, you'd miss it, the look of total exhaustion on Naruto's features. Guko already had been wondering how Naruto managed to work all day, every day without being tired, but this was ridiculous. So he'd watched closely since the blonde awoke, and finally came to the conclusion that it wasn't that the blonde wasn't tired or exhausted, it was that Naruto hid it nearly flawlessly. He suspected that the only reason it was nearly, instead of perfectly, was due to the fact that Naruto stopped pretending the moment he would get home. Guko noticed that Naruto practically dissolved the moment he stepped through the door. These past 2 days he'd been staying at the apartment. His smile would drop, his body would release all of the build-up tension the dog didn't even know was there until it was gone, and this very worn-down expression would consume his features. When Naruto started to grab his shinobi attire, Guko limped over to where he knew the blonde kept his pouch and weapons before biting a hold of it, dropping it onto the floor and promptly laying over it. When the blonde walked over, fully dressed, to see the dog on his weapons pouch, he let out a sigh of frustration. "Look, Guko, I need to meet the others, so give it up, I need to train," Naruto said as he knelt down to take it. Guko snarled at him to keep away, clearly getting his message across. Naruto retracted his hand and glared at the dog. "I'm not going back to bed. I'm not staying home. I'm completely fine. Now give me my weapons," Naruto said in agitation. Guko merely growled back, "I can be just as stubborn as you," Guko thought. Naruto stood up and glared daggers at the dog before turning and heading towards the door. Guko grabbed the weapons pouch in his mouth and limped over to the door until he stood in front of it, dropped the pouch and laid on it once more. "I don't have time to play with you, mutt," Naruto spat angrily. "I need to train so that I can get better missions so that I can afford to get the fuck out of here. Now move." Guko lowered his head a bit, startled at Naruto's tone. Never before in the last year of knowing the blonde or the last 2 days of staying at the preteen's apartment had Naruto ever been angry with him. "This is the exact reason I never tell any of my team about anything, because then they'd pull stupid shit like this," Naruto snarled as he eyed Guko icily. They could never understand how hard it is to simply live. Everything costs money: food, shelter, water, heat, electricity, clothes. Unlike them, I don't have everything handed to me on a silver platter. If I come to the bridge sick, they tell me to go home to get better, but if I don't work, I don't get paid. If I don't get paid, I don't get medicine or food or water or any of the things that make you better. No, I end up doing no work, not getting better and feeling even worse because they won't let me work. Now I need to leave," Naruto hissed at the dog. Naruto's anger rose when the dog refused to move. "I feel the love, really I do," Naruto said sarcastically. "I'm sure I'll feel the gnaw of starvation in my stomach when I can't get food in the freezing cold air, when I can't pay for heating too." With every word, Guko felt lower and lower before he eventually laid on the ground with his ears flat to his head. He'd not considered the consequences being so severe for the blonde. Kakashi never mentioned things being so difficult for any of his students, so the dog assumed they'd all been fairly well off, especially since the third Hokage himself looked after the welfare of Naruto and now the fifth greatly cared for him. Had Naruto starved before? Had he been left to freeze as the blonde's words suggested he'd had? Guko got up and moved away from the pouch, which Naruto quickly grabbed and fixed on his leg before the dog changed his mind. Guko watched as Naruto opened the door and looked back straight at him, the blonde's motions hesitant. In a much softer voice than before he spoke, "If you still want to come to training grounds with me, you're welcome to." "I'm sorry I yelled at you," I didn't mean to. I just sorta lost my temper. I just really need the money right now. Okay? I know you were only trying to do what you thought was best. Naruto trailed off, unsure of what else to say. Guko limped over to the blonde and as Naruto bent down licked the blonde's cheek as a sign of forgiveness. Naruto gave him a small smile and picked the dog up to head out. The blonde made sure not to jar his leg down the 3 flights of stairs and for that Guko was thankful. After last night's jump to the bed he'd been in more pain than when Kakashi first got the cast on with the vet touching it hard, in order to see exactly what was broken. Suddenly Guko felt the arms holding him tense and his body pushed closer to the blonde's chest. Their pace quickened, no longer a soft ride as Naruto attempted to get out of the building without seeming rushed. Guko peered around and found that the only other person around was a woman in her late 20s, just leaning against the wall next to the exit entrance of the building. She was rather pretty, with silky black hair that touched her shoulders in just the right way, and piercing light brown eyes that seemed to miss nothing. As Naruto walked past her, Guko was surprised to see the woman clamp her hand onto Naruto's shoulder. Naruto's grip tightened on the dog and the blonde's eyes took on a blank look that scared the crap out of Guko. Guko growled at the woman, warning her off, but she ignored him as if he was nothing but a cat. "Good morning, Naruto," the woman said sweetly. "I trust you had a wonderful night's sleep." Guko could feel Naruto's fingers clench slightly around his fur, under his body. Did this woman know about whatever hurt Naruto last night? Why did Naruto seem frightened of her? Guko watched Naruto visibly struggle to get his emotions under control before slapping a grin on his face. Naruto turned towards her with a big toothy smile, hands no less tight on Guko though. "My night was wonderful, I couldn't have slept better," Naruto said in a surprisingly sincere tone. There was a silence where both humans and dog knew Naruto was supposed to be courteous and ask, "Well, how was your night, ma'am?" Naruto never asked though, he just continued to smile and then slowly began backing up until he was at the doorway. "Can he talk?" she asked sweetly. Naruto looked down at Guko wearily before shaking his head. "No, he can't," Naruto said as he took another step backwards and turned. "I have to go, bye." "Naruto," the woman called, causing Naruto to halt though hesitantly. "I'm not a patient or nice woman," she said sternly. The toothy grin faltered before it fell completely. "I know," Naruto said gravely before taking off without a single glance back. Naruto didn't stop until they reached the training grounds where Sasuke and Sakura were to meet him. Guko found the conversation 10 minutes ago to be deeply disturbing, every few seconds peering up at Naruto who seemed to be ignoring him, eyes focused straight ahead and nowhere else. Naruto gently set the dog down before proceeding to the nearest set of trees and withdrawing 4 kunai from his weapons pouch, 2 in each hand, each between a knuckle. Guko watched as Naruto flung the deadly projectiles into the tree's bark with a tenacity, accuracy and viciousness he'd rarely ever seen from a genin. Guko made sure to stay far from the blonde as the preteen continued. They were early, very early actually. Guko wondered if Naruto came early every day to do this or if this was odd for the blonde. 2 hours later Guko couldn't help but gap. Never once did Naruto slow down in his assault of the trees. Each time he ran out of kunai he would hurriedly rip them from the bark's hold only to begin again. Naruto didn't even seem particularly tired. In fact, the blonde was still overflowing with negative emotions. The killing intent the blonde held the entire time caused the dog a great deal of trouble since it made the air difficult to breathe. Guko had been forced back 50 feet just to be able to handle the sheer force of will that was Naruto. 10 minutes before Sasuke and Sakura were to arrive the blonde suddenly froze, just about to toss yet another kunai. The blonde peered behind him at the sun and deftly twirled the kunai before stashing it and closing his eyes. Guko could hear Naruto mumbling to himself before the blonde shook himself not unlike a wet dog and took deep, deep breaths to calm himself down. Slowly, ever so slowly, the killing intent in the air wavered and died, just like that. Guko watched in fascination as Naruto opened his eyes, walked over to the trees and began to wrench the kunai out to stash back in his bag. By the time Sasuke and Sakura arrived with their respective charges, Naruto seemed to be a completely different person. He sat on the grass, a broad smile on his face, and greeted his team as if he'd not just ripped apart several of the trees in the area. Sasuke surveyed their training ground till his eyes fell on top of the torn apart trees. The pale preteen frowned deeply. Damn, Junin have been training in our field again, Sasuke said irritably. Guruko gaped at the Uchiha. I know, right? Naruto agreed, his voice just as annoyed. Kaka-sensei was supposed to have talked to them about it. Guruko's head twisted 180 as the dog stared at Naruto in utter shock. Naruto patted Guruko's head, not even batting an eyelash as he blatantly lied to his team without the slightest hesitancy. Naruto stretched nonchalantly, easily ignoring Guruko's eyes boring into him. We should get started, huh? Naruto stated more than asked. Even after the 2 hours of early work Naruto performed before Team 7's training, the blonde worked through the normal exercises that were part of the team's regimen. Then through the chakra exercise that Sakura explained to the blonde, but not without insulting the preteen at least 3 different times through the explanation, much to Guruko's annoyance. The exercise was to keep a leaf atop the forehead with chakra. Simple enough, except that Naruto was having an extremely hard time with it. Guruko limped over to the sitting blonde, dark muttering escaping from his lips every few seconds when the leaf would flutter to the ground. Guruko lay beside the blonde, watching him carefully. As the leaf once more fluttered to the ground, Naruto glared at it venomously. I've got too much chakra for this stupid exercise to work, Naruto growled in irritation. Guruko could agree with that. The leaf exercise required a minimum amount of chakra, similar to the regular Bunshin jutsu, which is why Naruto could not perform the said jutsu. Nevertheless, the blonde continued on his useless crusade, something Guruko wanted desperately to ask why when they both knew he would not be able to. Guruko peered at Sakura, the girl being carefully instructed by Sasuke each time her aim would be off. She probably held not even the smallest inkling about how much chakra her teammate had and thus hadn't considered it when she gave the exercise to him. Guruko knew that Naruto would never mention this little fact to the Rosette though. Naruto kept all information about himself and his power a tight-lipped secret. God damn it, Naruto swore as the leaf fell once more. Guruko's attention came back to the blonde. Why don't you just go and ask her for something that requires more chakra? Guruko wondered. The afternoon sun was at its highest when the team broke for a break. Sakura walked over with Pakun in her arms and shook her head at Naruto as he once more tried to keep the leaf attached to his forehead and failed. Naruto, that's by far one of the most simplest chakra exercises I know. Even academy students can easily do it. I can't believe that you're that untalented, Sakura said in exasperation. Guruko watched Naruto's fingers curl and shake, but the blonde quickly hid it by stuffing his hands into his jacket. Ah, Sakura-chan, that's harsh, Naruto said in a mock-hurt voice. Sakura just huffed and turned to Sasuke. Do you guys want to go eat lunch now? Sakura asked her teammates, though it was clearly more so directed at Sasuke. Guruko watched Naruto's face fall for a moment before the blonde forced his features into a grin. Where would you guys want to eat? Naruto asked happily. Sakura peered at him for a second, deep in thought. There's a really good buffet they have near the academy, Sakura said slowly, eyes toward Sasuke for her crush's approval. Sasuke shrugged and started walking in the direction of the academy with Yuhei right behind him. Sakura more than happy to hurry to his side with Pakun in her arms. Naruto's face fell into weary resignation before slowly turning back into a grin and walking over to Guruko. Naruto picked up Guruko and followed after his teammates and the other 2 dogs at a slower pace. Guruko noticed how Naruto shoved a few leaves in his pockets on their way though. Naruto caught up to them, but instead of walking beside the 2 decided to stay directly behind them as they moved through the crowds. What are we going to do with the dogs? Naruto asked steadily. Sasuke gave Naruto an annoyed look, something Guruko was quickly becoming angry at. Kakashi's dogs are allowed in all public places within Konoha, Sasuke said dryly. Pakun gave an indignant snort at Naruto's question as well. Kakashi told us that a long time ago Naruto, and it was in the instructions. Sakura added in the, "Are you really that stupid?" tone of voice. Right, I remember, Naruto said slightly dejected, though neither of his teammates seemed to care. When they were outside the restaurant, Guruko felt Naruto's arms stiffen around him. Hey Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto said, much louder than necessary. They both turned toward him. I'll go ahead and grab the dogs something to eat if you take Guruko in for me. Go ahead and start eating, cuz I don't know how long I'll be. Okay? Naruto asked as he held out Guruko to Sasuke. Guruko gave a whine as Sasuke nodded and took him into his arms. Naruto turned and walked away as the rest of them entered the restaurant. Where the hell is he? Pakun growled out in his deep voice irritably as the dog's stomach growled at him. It was an hour and a half before Sasuke and Sakura finally got fed up with waiting for the blonde and left for the training grounds, 3 hungry dogs in tow. Well, get you some food on the way there, Sakura promised them as they turned down the main street. Guruko scanned the crowds, eyes trying to catch the orange jacket that stood out like the sun in the blue sky. Sorry, a loud familiar voice called out to the group. Single quote. Almost like he was waiting for us to leave the restaurant, Guruko thought, looking at he blonde with suspicion. Pakun once more growled at the small blonde who took a step back and would have raised his arms in surrender if not for the brown bag in his hands. I got their food, let's go ahead and head to the training field and they can eat there, Naruto said cheerfully. Sakura walked up to Naruto, her hair shadowing her face before she raised her fist and smacked the blonde's head with it. Naruto took a few steps back, not even the smallest bit surprised by the assault on his person. Guruko growled at the rosette but the girl assumed that the growl was meant for Naruto. We were waiting for you for nearly 2 hours, you dimwit. Sakura cried out angrily. I know, I'm sorry but the butcher had a lot of people in line so I had to wait a while, Naruto explained sheepishly. Sasuke sighed. I suppose we'll have to stop by somewhere to grab you something to eat then, Sasuke said aggravated. No need, Naruto assured. I grabbed a sandwich on my way back. With that they headed off to training. As they walked home around 4 that afternoon Guruko couldn't help but shiver. Above him, Naruto focused his attention on the ground in front of him, head bent down as his feet hurriedly walked down the street. People either moved away from him as if the very air around him were the plague or purposely tried to bump into him. Naruto was able to dodge all such attempts with an ease that clearly spoke of years of experience. The thought disturbed the dog greatly. He raised his hackles at a few, but Naruto would always stroke his fur soothingly, as if to comfort him. Guruko growled as one particularly large man with black bandages covering the entirety of his head barged past the much smaller blonde and glared down icily at the preteen as he simply and gracefully twirled around him, not once lifting his head from staring at the ground, and continued to walk. Naruto stroked back Guruko's pointy ears and his grip on the dog tightened a bit, though not uncomfortably so. Shush, stop growling at people. You're gonna get me in trouble you know, Naruto whispered quietly to the dog. Guruko gave a small snarl at the blonde, clearly not liking the idea of just letting the people get away with what they were doing. Naruto sighed heavily. That big guy you just growled at? Naruto asked softly as they continued to walk. He's an Anbu captain. Someone even Kakashi would have trouble with. You should never have growled at him cause now he's angry at me. It was fine that I dodged but it's bad if I show any reaction to stuff like that. It always comes back to bite me in the ass. So please just ignore it. Guruko huffed at the blonde as they entered Naruto's home. Soon after, Naruto poured a bowl of food for Guruko and placed it beside the table. I know you're not hungry now but I won't be back till very late so it's there for you, Naruto said as he filled up the water bowl next. Guruko grumbled but it was more in amusement this time around. The blonde then proceeded to make an exceptionally comfy mini bed beside the big bed, created out of the only extra blanket Naruto had in his home. Then proceeded to check the heater to make sure it was warm enough for the dog. Then made sure all the windows were tightly shut against the cold of the night and curtains drawn. It all reminded him of something Kakashi said about 2 months ago when the subject of Naruto came up. Give the boy an opponent and he becomes a calculating strategist bound to defeat the enemy with some ingenious scheme. Try to get the blonde to explain how he did it and you'll just get a headache. Give the boy someone to care for and he becomes an overprotective mother hen bound to drive you nuts with his carefulness. Try to ask why he cares so much or argue against it and you'll suddenly become the opponent. Guruko rolled onto his back as he watched the blonde begin to boil water, then inwardly groaned as he poured rice into the pot. Does he eat anything but white rice and ramen? Guruko thought angrily. As the water boiled, Naruto made sure to water all of his precious plants and to Guruko's immense bewilderment, Naruto actually talked to them. He went around the room talking softly, as if to keep from offending ears that did not exist, and told them all about his day. Kakashi's words came back to him. Naruto talks to everyone whether they can hear or understand him anyway. You have to remember that Naruto's been alone all his life. I often find him talking to himself while he trains just to fill the air with noise. I think it's just his way of trying not to feel too lonely." Quote. Guko watched the blonde with sad eyes. He understood now. Naruto's obsession with plants, why so many and so well taken care of. They were the only company that Naruto ever got. Guko had to wonder if he was the first guest that Naruto had ever had in his home before. He, so you don't like me either, huh? That's okay, not many people do, or animals I suppose in your case. No, he was definitely the first to be here. The rice was done cooking by the time Naruto made his round. The blonde eating his rice quickly into the very last grain. Naruto somehow locked his door on the way out with Guko in hands before they turned to exit the building. It was as they exited that Guko noticed how the rest of the apartments, at least from what you could see of the outside, seemed to be much better kept up than Naruto's. Somehow Guko knew that the worse-off condition of Naruto's home was in no way connected with Naruto's lack of care. Naruto kept his home extremely clean and dustless. The only thing not kept up was Naruto's always unmade bed. But Guko guessed it was from Naruto's lack of knowledge on proper housekeep rather than laziness. Guko sensed it 5 seconds before it happened. It took 4 for a bark to exit his mouth and gave Naruto only a single second to react. Naruto twisted the front of his body away from the wall he'd been walking beside, forcing his arms to encircle the dog and leaning his head forward over the dog's front, using as much of his small mass as a human shield as possible just as the attack came. It came as a full-on body slam by a much larger and stronger body into the wall he'd just turned away from. The man, using the full force of his larger mass and his forearm in front of him as the focus point of all his power, met the nearly unsuspecting blonde full-on. Naruto felt his head knock harshly against the wall, his brain doing a loop-de-loop inside his skull. A split second later the forearm came crashing against his throat, the scream that had been escaping the blonde's lips cutting off and trapping in his lungs so that they felt as if they burst. Then the rest of the man's body came crashing against his, pinning his legs against the wall as the enemy finally came to a stop. An object in motion will stay in motion till another object stops its motion. Simple physics, but Naruto was always one who hated that kind of logic anyway. Thankfully, Guko was fine. Trapped between their bodies, angry beyond belief, having a difficult time breathing because of the pressure, mouth closed shut by one of Naruto's hands, but otherwise fine. Naruto's body successfully shielded him from the blow, which in itself angered him. The damn blonde was supposed to have done something to protect himself, not him. Guko struggled to get free as he heard Naruto choking for air, the large body pinning him against the wall, refusing to let up pressure. If Naruto had dropped Guko before the assault came, then the blonde's hands would be free right now instead of pinned down against his body and Guruko's. Guko felt their bodies being raised into the air, the man pushing the small blonde up the wall with his forearm easily. Guko could hear the sickening sound of flesh scraping against brick, something no human would be able to pick up. The dog tried to snarl, tried to wiggle free, but could feel that the only thing he was doing was causing Naruto pain by smashing into the blonde's already taxed lungs. "Enjoying yourself?" a deep male voice asked calmly as Naruto continued to choke for air. Suddenly their bodies fell to the ground, but Naruto never let Guko fall out of his arms. Even in so much pain he refused to let the dog get hurt because someone had a personal vendetta against him. Naruto coughed harshly, hands moving up to his neck as he tried to breathe. Guko burst out from Naruto's hold and viciously snarled at the tall, broad-shouldered man before him. Black hair with brown streaks all throughout its length, which sat almost proudly just beneath the man's tan ears. If Guko could guess, he'd say the man was just over 30 years in age. He wore no ninja attire, nor did he have a headband, but no non-shinobi could move so fast. In fact, not many shinobi could move that fast. Narrowed eyes of a deep brown stared down and past Guko at the blonde behind him, still gasping for air. Guko snarled again to garner the man's attention from Naruto. Guko tried to lunge at the man, but his body slammed against some kind of chakra barrier around the man. Guko yelped as the left side of his face went numb and he could no longer feel his nose. The man laughed darkly. "Well, it seems you've got yourself a cute little guard dog, one of Kakashi's to boot," the man whispered out softly. Naruto continued to cough harshly, unknown to Guko, His windpipe had been crushed and his Biju was weaving his chakra into the blonde's throat to heal it as quickly as possible. Blood dripped to the floor from Naruto's lips, his wet, hacking cough horrible to hear. Guko didn't see the blood though. His eyes were trained on the enemy as he moved between Naruto and the man. He would try to attack again, but then that would leave Naruto wide open for another assault, which the blonde wouldn't be able to handle if he couldn't breath. I hope you enjoy your day, Naruto. I have some work that needs my attention at headquarters, the man said simply, and with that was swept away by an array of leaves. Cough, cough, cough. Guko turned to see a stream of blood dripping steadily onto the cement as Naruto held his throat, which to the dog's horror was turning a deep black very quickly. Guko nudged Naruto to stand, pulling at the blonde's sleeves. Naruto shakily complied, first on hands and knees before steadily trying to life his body further. The dog watched in panic as Naruto's entire body shuddered before dipping toward the ground again, the blonde only just managing not to knock his head against the cement. Cough, cough, cough. Guko threw his head up and howled loudly, seeking the attention of anyone nearby. Guko limped down the hall, eyes searching for any soul nearby. That's when he saw a glimpse of someone just entering their door, all the way down the hall, with a bag of groceries in her arms. It was the woman from earlier. Guko didn't want this woman to know he could talk, but Guko howled loudly, limping down the hall as the women turned towards him. Well, if it isn't little Naruto's dog. You didn't seem to like me this morning, why the change of heart? The women asked in amusement. Guko whimpered and howled again, turning around and limping back. The women got his message and followed him. Guko knew that for some reason Naruto greatly disliked this woman, that he even seemed afraid of her, but Naruto's life was in danger. When the women turned the corner and spotted Naruto coughing up blood and clutching his throat, she immediately swooped down and sat in front of him to assess the damage. Cough, cough, cough. Naruto's eyes widened as she took his chin in her hands and examined his neck. Guko watched wearily as he saw Naruto attempt to back away from her, but was too weak with his oxygen-deprived mind to put up much of a fight, especially when the women's grip tightened. It appears that you're in a predicament, aren't you, little one? She asked softly, eyes boring into his. Naruto's eyes were beginning to roll into the back of his head. If I heal this, will you come this weekend? I'll be having a friend over as well. She asked in that stern voice Guko heard earlier. Naruto's entire frame stiffened. Guko wanted to snarl at the women and at the same time whimper for her to help him. He was so confused as to what was going on. Kyuubi will be able to heal this, so either way you'll live, she said in a clipped voice. However, he won't be able to heal it in time for you to avoid a few weeks in the hospital. Then you'll be behind in your bills again. That wouldn't be very nice now, would it? Hospital bills, rent and other things. She asked softly. Naruto continued to cough, the blood coming without stop, tears of pain unwillingly dripping from the blonde's eyes. Guko whimpered beside him, nudging the blonde and glaring angrily at the women. To use a situation like this to get Naruto to agree to something? It was unimaginably cruel. Naruto shook his head, forcefully wrenching himself from her grip, and backed away. The effort was immense though, he'd already been unable to breathe for several minutes. Naruto coughed up a rather large lump of blood before laying his head on the ground. Guko whimpered from beside Naruto's head before growling fiercely at the black-haired women. What can I do? He refuses to take my help, the women said calmly to the dog. Guko pulled on Naruto's sleeve, who weakly stared back at him before turning his head ever so slightly to the woman and giving her a slight nod, and then succumbing to unconsciousness. A wicked smile graced the beautiful woman's face before her hands glowed a greenish hue of healing chakra. She quickly went to work, first and foremost opening the windpipe back up. Naruto painfully gasped for air, his chest barely moving up and down as the beautiful women proceeded to force air into the lungs while simultaneously aiding the Kyuubi to stitch the windpipe up. Guko watched in sheer terror as the boy's breathing hitched horribly and the wet coughs grew worse as air came in to fuel them. The dog whined piteously as Naruto's pale face slowly but surely grew tan once more. When after 45 minutes passed by and the green hue of chakra finally vanished, Naruto's chest moved easily up and down, though the blood all around him like some sick ritual was disconcerting. The woman wiped her brow with her sleeve before smirking to herself and looking down at the dog and boy before her. Guruko couldn't help but shiver at the cold gleam that shone in the women's eyes. He won't be going anywhere tonight, that's for sure, the woman said to herself. Guruko watched her wearily, and as she went to pick up the boy, Guruko placing himself firmly between the blonde and the beautiful women. She snorted in amusement. Do you want me to leave him in the hall like this, or would you like me to take him back to his room? The women asked. Guruko, whose hackles had raised and hair was ruffled, forcefully calmed down and stepped aside. The beautiful woman placed her arms under his legs and behind his back before she lifted him off the dirty floor and cradled him against her rather large chest. Guruko limped after her as she headed for Naruto's apartment, rummaging through the blonde's pocket for the key and awkwardly opening the door, similar to Naruto's own plight just about an hour beforehand. She walked into the apartment without further ado and across the living room, kitchen to enter the bedroom. She took her time, examining everything within the apartment before setting Naruto down on the bed, her fingers lightly tracing the jacket and then caressing the bloodied face, pushing back a strand of straw-colored hair. He really is adorable, isn't he? She asked the dog in a lilting tone. Without saying anything else, she turned and walked out the door, closing it behind her. Guruko never left Naruto's side that night, listening carefully for even the smallest amount of difficulty breathing. Luckily, it appeared that the beautiful woman Naruto was so terrified of knew her medical jutsu well. Naruto didn't awake until late the next morning, far past the time to meet Sasuke and Sakura for training, incredibly too late for the appointment, and there was no question that Naruto would get into trouble for missing work. When the small blonde finally stirred from the deep healing sleep he'd been placed in, Guruko made sure he was right there beside him. Naruto's eyes tiredly cracked open, the familiar icy blue staring at the dog for several long moments, dulled by lingering pain. Naruto slowly sat up, leaning heavily against the wall, before his gaze fell to his lap and stayed there. Guruko moved cautiously up to the blonde, resting his muzzle on Naruto's knee and staring up at him. Guruko blinked in surprise when he found tears streaming down the face above him, the lips trembling with suppressed sobs that eventually escaped in the form of hiccups. Naruto's entire frame shook with them. Guruko moved forward and leaned against Naruto's chest, a whimper escaping the dog's throat. The action caused what little control Naruto possessed over his emotions to break. Naruto buried his face into the dog's fur as sobs racked his entire body. His hands pulled the dog in and hugged him tightly, desperately trying to garner comfort from the only companion to ever see him break down. Guruko nuzzled Naruto's face, licking the tears from the preteen's eyes. For a long time they just sat there in that position, a heartbroken expression adorning Naruto's features, a helpless feeling overwhelming Guruko. When Naruto spoke, his voice came out in a harsh whisper, still healing from the injury obviously. I should get you another appointment, Naruto whispered painfully. The dog looked up at Naruto stunned. No, you need to tell someone what the man did, Guruko thought ferociously. Why wasn't Naruto telling anyone about these horrible things happening to him? Why would he keep it a secret if he could get away from these people and be safe? Naruto still shook terribly, obviously shaken up and in pain from the experience yesterday. Naruto sniffled and wiped his nose on his sleeve. Kakashi, Kaka-sensei is going to be so mad, Naruto said softly, tightly hugging Guruko. Yes, he's going to be furious that this happened. Guruko thought. He'll hunt down that man and make him pay for sure. I can't believe I missed your appointment, Naruto said, reprimanding himself. I'm so stupid sometimes. Guruko gaped at Naruto. The blonde had been assaulted last night, and if not for the fact that he was a Jinchuriki, he would have most likely have died before the beautiful women even got to him. Yet he was worried about some godforsaken appointment? He'd been sobbing just a minute ago, for goodness sake. Naruto set Guruko to the side and unsteadily got out of bed, much to the dog's growing horror. Naruto sniffled and looked around. I need to stop by work and apologize later too, Naruto said as he moved away and began going through the routine of getting ready for the day, as if he'd not just suffered a life-threatening injury. Are you crazy? Guruko thought. Get back in bed. Guruko growled at the blonde who seemed to not even hear him. I need to do laundry today too, Naruto said quietly as he pulled out a set of clothes and set them on the bed. Guruko barked loudly at the blonde, but still Naruto didn't seem to hear him. Naruto tugged off his clothes and let them drop to the ground, exposing his black and blue neck and causing the dog to wince. Naruto walked into the bathroom and soon after Guko heard the sound of the shower starting. Chapter 3. Sometimes I pretend that. Guko shifted uncomfortably in the blonde's strong arms. The blue vest-like jacket with a frowny face on its back scrunched up till it stopped at his neck with every sudden jerk of Naruto's movements, and the forehead protector he wore proudly around his neck would slap against his chin every time the young shinobi had jumped from one roof to the next. The dog could feel his soft, slightly short brown fur get pulled each time the preteen turned his body. Guko felt his pointed ears twitch in annoyance. Yes, the small wolf-like dog was not happy being a passenger. His white muzzle allowed a short growl to escape his pointy teeth-infested mouth as they dropped from the final rooftop. Naruto blinked and looked down at the dog, smiling sheepishly as he realized he'd forgotten the dog, even while they were heading to the vet. "Sorry," Naruto whispered. When they finally turned onto the Inuzuka compound early that Thursday afternoon, Guko was in an extremely foul mood. It was made all the worse by the fact that Naruto wore a big grin on his face the size of Fire Country and possessed an all-around cheerful attitude. It caused the dog to wonder if Naruto ever came to Kakashi's training sessions with such fake emotions. If Guko hadn't witnessed Naruto's breakdown and all-around broken aura for the last couple hours inside the apartment, he'd never in a million years guessed the blonde before him was deeply hurting. He thanked whatever god there was up there that Naruto didn't know that he could talk, because he severely doubted that Naruto would have allowed him to see such dark emotions so easily. At the gates, they were greeted by a tall young woman with the traditional red canine markings on her cheeks and long bound-up straight, brown hair. "Hello there, Uzumaki-kun. Kakashi told me you'd be bringing Guko to his appointment. I've been fairly worried since you didn't show up." "What happened?" Guko yipped happily at the sight of Hana Inuzuka, to which the women frowned, wondering if there was something wrong with his vocal cords. Naruto, on the other hand, blushed horribly red. "Kun?" Naruto whispered hoarsely in a surprised voice, throat still hurting him some. It took a moment for Guko to understand why Naruto would react to such a simple and common form of expression before he remembered that Naruto was a Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki were not called by any type of honorific by anyone. They were considered to be beneath such a human reference. Not even Naruto's teammates or any of the rookies ever referred to Naruto with "kun," despite the fact that none of them knew about him being a Jinchuriki. They had long ago subconsciously learned Naruto didn't deserve it through the reactions of the adult citizens and shinobi around them. Guko snorted in annoyance. Humans could be truly stupid sometimes. Despite the fact that Naruto's DNA and chakra pathways had been slightly altered to handle the immense and potent chakra within his body, there was nothing else that separated him from a normal human. He could easily be compared to a special human or one that possessed a blood limit. Just because the power Naruto possessed was 10 times more powerful than a normal blood limit, didn't mean that the silly humans had to run around like chickens with their heads cut off, afraid they would die if Naruto simply made a single wrong or threatening move. This, Guko knew, was preposterous. Naruto, as Kakashi many times would talk about with either annoyance or extreme pride, had one of the kindest hearts in existence. Annoyance because it meant that Naruto wanted to help every person who wasn't happy when they went on missions and find some extremely time-consuming way to do it. A great deal of pride because it meant that Naruto wanted to help every person who wasn't happy when they went on missions despite the harshness of his own life. Naruto leaned forward in a short bow. "I'm very sorry. Something came up last night that I couldn't avoid. It's no excuse, but I hope you'll forgive me for wasting your time. I was hoping to set up another appointment if that's possible," Naruto said politely. Guko was quite shocked. Naruto never showed anyone manners. Kakashi could oftentimes be found muttering about disrespectful blondes when he complained about his students to his dogs. Naruto was practically famous for it. It seemed that all that got Naruto to be polite was a show of manners to him first. Hana Inuzuka smiled warmly down at the blonde as she waved for him to come inside. Naruto did so and followed her all the way to the back room, where he carefully set Guko down, making extra sure not to jar the dog's leg. "I have plenty of time for an appointment right now actually," Hana said thoughtfully as she pulled down supplies from a cabinet. "I would really appreciate that," Naruto said gratefully, a relieved sigh escaping him. Hana nodded absent-mindedly as she set down all she needed onto the cold metal table. "Uzumaki-kun, my brother is in the backyard practicing one of our family's jutsus. I'm sure he would be very happy to see you if you'd like to go talk to him while I work on Guko," Hana said as she finally looked up at the blonde. Naruto blushed scarlet again at the honorific before a contemplative look crossed his face. Guko watched as Naruto's gaze finally settled on him. "Will you be all right here without me?" Naruto asked hesitantly. Guko suppressed the urge to sigh in exasperation. Kakashi was totally right. Naruto was a complete mother hen. Instead, the dog yipped happily and wagged his tail, leaning forward and licking Naruto's face. Naruto nodded at him, scratching behind the dog's ear before finally departing to head toward the backyard. Now was the dog's chance. When the blonde disappeared from sight, Hana turned on him with a sharp gleam in her eyes. "Why exactly are you suddenly playing mute?" Hana demanded. "The last time I checked, it's a task to get you to not complain about something." "Ouch, that wasn't necessary," Guko thought. "I did it so that Naruto wouldn't know I can speak," Guko said honestly. Hana frowned at him and crossed her arms. "Why?" Guko flinched a bit at the question. Lying wasn't an option, but now he felt rather horrible about his reasoning. "I thought Naruto would annoy me to death if he knew I could talk back," Guko said slowly. Hana scowled at him. "With all the crap that boy puts up with and the fact that he is taking care of you, the very least you could do is talk with him. God only knows how much the boy could use someone to be nice to him. I've even heard Kiba sometimes coming home from the academy talking about how funny it was to see the idiot fail. Mother gave him a good rinsing of the mouth when she heard it, though that doesn't mean he didn't do it behind our backs afterwards," Hana said sadly. Guko shrunk at the omission and he couldn't help but feel even lower for it, though he supposed that was her point. "I actually have a good reason now," Guko said defensively, but his tone turned serious as Hana gave him a dark look. "I need you to inform the Hokage on a few things I witnessed while with Naruto." Hana paid rapt attention as Guko told her everything while she worked on his leg and rewrapped it in new cast, her face paling considerable as he neared the end. She collapsed in her chair, hands shaking as Guko finally ended with talking about the blonde's breakdown that morning. "God, oh God," Hana whispered. Guko nodded in agreement. "Whoever that woman is, she seems to have him trapped in something," Guko said thoughtfully, "and Naruto wants nothing to do with it." Hana appeared deeply distraught by the news. "He's even younger than Kiba though," she whispered. Guko couldn't say anything to that, so he just ignored it. "I want Naruto to continue to think I can't speak. As long as he believes that, then he won't attempt to hide anything from me," Guko said as he tested out how much weight he could get away with putting on his leg. For a moment Guko wasn't sure if the young women before him heard, but she eventually nodded in understanding. Hana stood up, carefully picking Guko up and placing him on the ground. "Don't worry, I'll inform the Hokage immediately. Now, you'll be able to at least limp around without any pain," Hana said as she walked down the hall toward the backyard. "That doesn't mean I want to, you know," Guko muttered just loud enough for Hana to hear as he limped after her. Normally she would have burst out laughing, but as the circumstances were glum, she just gave him a weak smile. As they neared the backyard, they heard Naruto and Kiba talking. "Totally just thought they were paint like Choji's swirls. You gotta tell me how you got them," Kiba's loud voice shouted out. "Kiba, will you stop it?" Naruto asked irritably. "Who'd you get to tattoo them on at your age?" Kiba asked incredulously. They're not tattoos," Naruto said overly loud in indignation. "Come on, they so are too. I promise I won't tell anyone," Kiba said loudly. Guko and Hana limped, walked into the backyard to find Kiba leaning into Naruto's face, poking his possession marks, the blonde leaning back in his seated position on the ground, an incredibly uncomfortable look on his face. "Kiba, don't be rude, back up immediately," Hana snarled out. Now what Kiba was doing in no way warranted a snarl, but unfortunately he'd picked the wrong time to antagonize the blonde who'd just been the topic of discussion. Kiba backed up as if he'd been burned, giving his sister the hurt puppy dog eyes, to which she stared back indifferently. Akamaru, who'd previously been lying down content to watch the scene in amusement, got up to stand beside his partner. Guko couldn't help but wince sympathetically in Naruto's direction. He knew that the blonde's possession marks was a sensitive subject because they declared to the world that he was a Jinchuriki. On top of that, the 6 whisker marks on his cheeks happened to be incredibly sensitive to touch. Like a cat's whiskers, he'd found it out when he'd first meet the blonde and Bull licked his face. Naruto flinched back involuntarily before he burst out laughing insanely loud and long. It took him several minutes to calm down and many strange looks from the blonde's teammates. After which Naruto quietly explained to the dogs that depending on what emotion the person, or in this case animal, are feeling when they touch his possession marks, he gains an explosion of those very emotions within him. Since Bull had been extremely excited to meet the team and overall happy, and those emotions were multiplied when he'd licked the blonde, Naruto had been overcome with an unbearable amount of happiness. Naruto looked downright relieved from the halt of Kiba's poking to his possession marks, his hand unconsciously brushing against them for a moment before the appendix dropped back to his side. Guko watched Hana carefully, afraid the young woman would let her emotions overwhelm her judgment about letting Naruto. Now that she knew, she kept her cool though. "Uzumaki-kun, Guko is good to go. I'll expect you back here in a week for his next checkup," Hana said sweetly if not a little sternly, as if the blonde would suddenly decide to disappear. Naruto nodded, clearly confused by the strange tone the young women spoke to him with. Kiba, for what it was worth, appeared to be pouting and muttering under his breath. Guko limped over to the blonde who, without even thinking about it, picked the dog up into his arms and adjusting him so that the headband around the dog's neck didn't bite into his chest. Guko wagged his tail. Hana shook her head at him. Kiba was still muttering in the background. "You know our mother is out of town all week," Hana spoke up thoughtfully. "Me and my brother could use your guys' company for dinner tonight if you're willing. While our clan is big, we prefer to eat with only our inner family and pack mates, so dinner will be lonely." Kiba gaped at his sister, completely taken by shock. Since when did she invite someone who's not dateable to eat dinner with them besides his team? Naruto, on the other hand, positively glowed in embarrassed pleasure. "We would love to," Naruto said, hands practically squeezing Guruko's guts out. Guruko gasped for air, whining pathetically in the blonde's arms. "Oops, sorry Guruko," Naruto said sincerely when he realized what he was doing. Hana laughed heartily as she began to walk toward the Inuzuka's kitchen. "Good, then be here by 4:30 tonight," Hana yelled back over her shoulder. "It must be that time of the month," Kiba muttered to himself, as if that could be the only explanation. Kiba turned to Naruto and shrugged. "Sorry she dragged you into coming, man. I know you probably got better things to do," Kiba said apologetically. The natural smile on Naruto's face became a bit strained at the comment, but this went unnoticed by both Kiba and Guruko. "It sounds like a lot of fun," Naruto said hesitantly. Kiba snorted. "Yeah, listening to her talk about her current heartbreak boyfriend is a real blast," Kiba said sarcastically. Naruto's smile strained a little more. "It can't be all that bad," Naruto said cheerfully. Kiba laughed, gasping for air slightly and wiping away a fake tear. The brunette clamped a hand onto Naruto's shoulder as he gained control of his breathing. "Seriously man, it's scary. I'd run away in terror if I were you," Kiba advised. "I'll see you later." Naruto walked slowly back towards the apartment with a tight smile on his face, obviously having a much more difficult time keeping it up than on the way to the Inuzuka compound, something that took Guruko nearly the whole way there to notice. At one point he'd had to excuse himself for a potty break in the woods, and when he'd returned it was to catch a small glimpse of a frown fighting for space on the blonde's lips. When they finally entered the apartment, Naruto finally let the frown win and sat dejectedly on his bed, letting Guruko move off his lap to turn and stare at the blonde with a questioning look. When the blonde remained silent, Guruko nudged his hand atop his head, where Naruto began to scratch him. Naruto peered over at the dog sadly. "I don't think I should go," Naruto said quietly. Guruko cocked his head, startled. "What? Why?" Guruko thought, bewildered. It was several long moments before Naruto spoke again. "He seemed mad, didn't he?" Naruto half asked the dog, half asked himself. "About Hana-san inviting me to eat dinner with them. I thought after the Chunin exams that Kiba could at least stand me." Naruto trailed off. "But even if I told Hana-san I would go, maybe I shouldn't. Kiba did say he didn't want me to come, and he's the one I've known for years." "But I already told her I would," Naruto said, falling into silence for several minutes at each pause. Guruko stared at him. It seemed he was doing an awful lot of that lately, in surprise. It was becoming increasingly difficult to place this blonde, this hesitant, thoughtful, reflective and sad blonde, into the same image as the overconfident, loud, happy and brash preteen that belonged to Team 7. Did Naruto always look at conversations in such a negative light? Guko tugged at Naruto's sleeve, forcing the blonde to look at him, before nodding his head vigorously up and down to confirm that Naruto needed to go. You should definitely go, it will be good for you, Guko thought. Naruto watched his actions, letting the dog's message sink in. Are you sure? I mean, Kiba? Naruto trailed off as Guko nodded again, though this time slower. Naruto began to wring his hands nervously as he stood up and started pulling random things out of places. After a few minutes of watching him in amusement, Guko saw Naruto sit in the middle of his room, an expression of being utterly lost adorning his face. Truthfully, the scene was adorable, like a toddler that was told to look for their teddy in their room when it was sitting on the kitchen counter. What am I supposed to do? Naruto asked out loud. Guko raised an eyebrow at the blonde. Naruto looked at Guko and sighed. Should I cook some rice to bring over? Should I try to find something nice to wear? Is there something I'm supposed to do beforehand? No one's ever invited me to spend time with them before, Naruto said, by now a complete nervous wreck. That sent Guko for a loop. Surely Kakashi at least had asked the blonde to spend time with him, for lunch or to teach him something or just to spend the afternoon with the blonde. He had to have at some point, especially since Guko knew for a fact that Kakashi invited Sakura several times to lunch to discuss genjutsu and techniques related to it in some way and spent nearly a month solely with Sasuke when training him for the Chunin final exam. What about the picnic they'd? Right, that was Naruto's idea. He'd suggested it and practically forced the others to agree to it. Damn it, Naruto cursed as he sat down on the bed again. I wish you could talk back. Naruto brought his knees up to his chest and laid his head on them. I'll just make some special rice and then I'll wear my headband around my neck and leave my jacket and weapons at home. Naruto muttered to himself, and hope that I'm not screwing something up again. Guko was sorely tempted to say something but refrained himself. It all caused the dog to wonder though, was this how Naruto made decisions when he didn't know what was socially acceptable? When he simply didn't know something, period. You think Sasuke and Sakura will be angry with me for not showing up today? Naruto asked as he let his legs fall into an Indian style before him. Guko snorted. Naruto was doing it again. He'd asked a question and then spend the next hour or so answering it without even the slightest worry about whether anyone heard him or not. Naruto got off the bed and started picking up laundry. I bet I know exactly what they'd say, Naruto told Guko, who for the most part ignored him, curling into a ball to rest. I bet they only waited there for a few minutes after we're supposed to meet before Sakura started screaming about how much of an idiot I am, and that she'll knock some sense into me when I finally show up. Naruto said as he moved to dump a small pile of clothes into an old broken hamper. When I don't show up, she'll huff and complain to Sasuke about how annoying I am. Naruto got out a large tin bucket from the closet, the length nearly 3 times his size and height reaching his waist. Then Sasuke will suggest that they just get started and that the dobi would pay later. Naruto shouted out as he pulled it into the bathroom and began to fill it to the brim with warm water. Then when it came time for missions, they'll complain about me again before picking out ones that wouldn't require a great deal of hard labor. I bet you $100 that both of them hate hard labor outside of training. They're only are willing to get tough ones every day 'cause my shadow clones make up for so much of the work. Naruto huffed out as he pulled a large bucket of warm water into the middle of the floor. Naruto then poured soup into the water, mixing the soup into the water with his arm. Right now they're most likely in the middle of doing those missions and will more than likely to end it early today, Naruto told Guko. Then tomorrow when I show up, they'll start yelling and stuff. Sakura will probably hit me on the head for being an idiot. As Naruto said this, his arm slowed down in its stirring, eyes focused on the swirling water. Naruto stood up and picked the hamper up, dumping all the clothes inside and smashing it down under the surface with his hand. Naruto burst out laughing as he brought out a long rectangle-like piece of metal that looked like a shutter from a window and put it in the water as well, holding the edge of it out with one hand. I bet they won't even ask me why I never showed up too. It won't even cross their minds. I bet that with every penny I've got that they won't. Naruto said with another laugh. The dog shivered. It wasn't funny in the least and Guko hated to admit it, but Naruto was probably right. Naruto's hands shook a bit as he dragged a pair of pants across the metal piece, up and down in a rhythmic fashion. I gotta admit, I know it's stupid, but I gotta admit I've been telling myself something over and over since I got on Team 7. Naruto said in a softer voice as he continued to do laundry. Guko listened intently, and if not for the fact that he was a dog with better than average hearing, he would have missed it. I told myself that they'd come for me if something bad happened. It helped me sleep at night, you know. I know it's stupid and I shouldn't have, but I wanted them to knock on my door this morning to see if I was okay. I know that's stupid and selfish, Naruto said with a shaky breath. He continued on to the next piece of clothing. That was horrible of me. I shouldn't have wanted that. It would have just caused problems. Naruto scrubbed harshly at a poor shirt. I just wish. Sometimes I just want them. Naruto stopped his movements and stared into the slightly mucky water beneath him. Sometimes I pretend that they care as much about me as I do them. Naruto finally whispered. Guko flinched. Naruto was scarily quiet after that. He finished the laundry and then proceeded to open his window and hang them out to dry. Without another word, Naruto retreated into the bathroom. Guko couldn't help but feel an air of foreboding within the little home, one that sent shivers through his small body. Something seemed incredibly off, but the dog quietly settled down nonetheless for the long wait as the shower could be heard turning on. Guko was scared shitless. Naruto re-emerged from the bathroom in an incredibly happy state. He gave the dog a wide grin and talked animatedly about some mission or other while he took special care to cook the white rice, adding a good deal of precious herbs for flavor. Something he didn't do for his own food except for very special occasions, but because they were going to the Inuzukas it was worth it. The blonde hummed a tune Guko didn't recognize as he went about the kitchen, adding this and that to the pot. Strangely enough, Naruto came out of the bathroom wearing his jacket, the sleeves pulled down all the way when normally Naruto kept them rolled up to the middle of his forearm to keep them out of the way when he sparred with his team. The sight of the article of clothing touching his fingertips looked strange and caused the blonde to appear even smaller than normal. Guko stared at the blonde wearily. The emotional 180s the preteen was pulling on him today was wearing the dog out. He wasn't sure if Naruto was merely trying to hide how upset he was or if he was genuinely excited about going. While Guko realized over the past few days that most of smiles the blonde wore were fake and strained, that in no way meant that he could tell the difference between a real smile and a fake one. Naruto was just too good at his act, and if Guko didn't see the evident change, the dog would never have been able to pick up on the fact that Naruto was faking it in the least. After placing the rice in one of the few containers he owned and getting dressed, Naruto stood in front of the mirror with Guko beside him. Naruto grinned cheekily down at the dog. So how'd I look? Naruto asked. Guko barked happily and wagged his tail. Just as Naruto mumbled earlier, he indeed wore his headband around his neck along with a long-sleeved black shirt and his orange pants. "Aw, you're just saying that," Naruto said teasingly as he tugged at a strand of hair. Naruto's bangs, which had grown quite a bit and needed to be cut, fell slightly into his eyes, giving him a shaggy appearance. Naruto mumbled something incoherently as he pushed them behind his ear, a few strands still slipping away and back, framing his face nicely. Naruto bent down in front of Guko and gently fixed the dog's slightly rumpled headband, Guko thanking him by licking his face. "Hey, I got a deal for you," Naruto whispered to the dog as if what he had to say was an evil secret. "If I totally embarrass myself or I'm doing something wrong and I don't know it, pretend you're having a horrible stomachache so that we can go home, okay?" Naruto asked. Guko snickered in amusement but once more licked Naruto to confirm that he would indeed bail him out if the need arrived. Naruto sighed in relief and patted Guko gratefully on the head. The dog leaned into the touch without hesitation. It was then that Guko realized that Naruto was quickly becoming his best friend. Who would have thought that it could happen so much as a week ago? In the pack, Pakun was Kakashi's best pack mate. Of course, each of the dogs held a special place in the retired Anbu's heart and spent a great deal of time with each, but the fact still remained that Pakun was the oldest and strongest of bonds among the dogs. Kakashi was his packmate and as far as he was concerned the alpha male, but Naruto was becoming a packmate at an astounding speed as well. How would he handle it when he had to go back at the end of the month to Kakashi? It was an unrealistic idea that he could take Naruto with him like a lost and alone pup. On the other hand, he couldn't stay with Naruto because Kakashi needed him for the numerous and dangerous missions assigned to him. Even with this month of missions, The man was taking a risk by leaving behind 3 of his dogs, especially Pakun, who was the best tracker. Guko whined at the thought. "Hey, are you okay, buddy?" Naruto asked as he continued to scratch behind the dog's ear. The movement of the blonde's hand stopped. "You didn't hit your head, did you? I'm not hurting you by scratching you, am I?" Naruto asked softly. Guko shook his head at the mother hen of a shinobi above him. Seriously, for a kid that had so many problems himself, he sure as hell worried a lot about others. It was a sadistic irony that not many cared if the kid dropped dead. Guko yipped happily and tugged at Naruto's arm playfully. Naruto laughed and scratched his head in just the right spot, making the dog sigh contentedly. "We should get going. It's already a little past 4 and it takes 10 minutes to walk over there," Naruto said as he picked the dog up and grabbed the shoulder bag with the container of rice in it. A nervous Naruto was truly an adorable thing. All the way to the Inuzuka compound, Naruto blushed horribly and would repeatedly be peering backwards as if looking for an escape route. So distracted was he that Naruto didn't even appear to hear any of the normal whispers that followed the blonde everywhere he went. Guko periodically glared at anyone who so much as dared to look at his friend wrong, but didn't growl for fear of pulling Naruto's attention to the people around him instead of the dinner ahead of him. If Kiba so much as insulted Naruto in any way, he swore the kid would lose a limb. When they finally arrived at the gates and followed the path to the front door, Naruto looked as if he would have a heart attack as he hesitantly knocked. Words from earlier that day floated into Guruko's mind as he gazed up at Naruto in concern. "No one's ever invited me to spend time with them before." Guruko felt his chest tighten a little. If that was really the truth, then Naruto was probably petrified then. Guruko shifted in the blonde's arms and nudged his nose up to touch Naruto's cheek. Naruto couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter as the cold nose tickled him, the action causing the blonde to relax a great deal. Naruto peered down at the dog in his arms and smiled gratefully at him. "Thanks." The door opened, causing Naruto's head to snap up and his back to straighten a bit unconsciously. Hana Inuzuka stood there, a warm smile spreading on her face as saw Naruto. "Uzumaki-kun, I'm so happy you're here. Come on in," Hana said as she pulled the door fully open. Naruto's blush turned scarlet once more at the honorific, still taken by surprise that anyone would use it in reference to him. Naruto walked in and followed Hana into the dining room to find quite the surprise. Kiba sat at the table with Shino and Hinata on either side of him. The table seated 6, leaving the other side empty. Naruto took a seat directed across from Kiba, feeling extremely awkward to the fact that it was 3 facing 1, increasing the empty hollow spot in his stomach, telling him he shouldn't be here. Guko felt Naruto's discomfort rolling off of him and cringed at the smile the blonde wore. Kiba would lose a leg later, that was for sure. The young Inuzuka managed to cause Naruto a great deal of hurt simply by accident. It was utterly ridiculous how completely unwelcoming this accidental arrangement managed to appear, and Guko knew for a fact that Naruto was taking it the wrong way. Naruto," Kiba said, scratching his cheek in embarrassment. "My sister's boyfriend's gonna be here any minute and I'm sure that she'd like to sit by him, so." The blush from before came back full force as Naruto realized his mistake in taking the middle seat. It would remain a permanent fixture throughout the whole meal. "Both legs," Guko thought heatedly. "He's going to lose both legs." "Sorry," Naruto cried out as he immediately moved over and sat in front of Hinata, who seemed to be competing with him for blush of the year. Hana came back into the room and set down a large pot roast in the middle of the table. She peered over at a fuming Guko and a blushing Naruto and then stared at Kiba with a suspicious glare before turning back to Naruto. She tapped the blonde on the shoulder before pointing to Guko. "Our dogs usually eat beside us on the floor, just cause it's easier for each of us to eat that way," Hana said gently. Naruto nodded before hesitantly putting the dog on the ground. Guko huffing and grumbling under his breath to the point it sounded like growling. "So what you been up to lately, Naruto?" Kiba asked with a big grin as he attempted to pull a piece of pork from the dish. His hand was thwarted by a slap from Hana and a stern threat of death if he so much as touch it. Pretty much just a lot of work," Naruto said, trying not to talk too much since he didn't want to annoy anyone. "What about you guys?" Naruto asked. Kiba's grin widened as he went into a tale about a B-rank mission involving gathering information on an old merchant who'd been suspected of dealing in drugs. Turned out it was the guy's son, and the old merchant was just trying to cover it up after discovering it 2 months back. Every time Kiba's boasting would get out of hand, Shino would interject to inform him and explain the correct telling of the event. Kiba would huff and Hinata would giggle at their antics. By the time Kiba finished, Hana's boyfriend arrived. A hefty young chunin with brown hair and blue eyes, along with the food on the table. It took a tug from Guko to remember the food he brought as well, the dog giving him a look of bemusement. Naruto stuck his tongue out at him as he pulled out the container of rice. "What's that?" Kiba asked as he placed a rather large piece of meat onto his plate. "Kiba, I want you to eat your vegetables and bread too," Hana called out, threatening. "Yes, Mom," Kiba replied sarcastically before turning back to Naruto. "Just some rice I cooked to bring over," Naruto said as he placed it on the table and opened the lid. The special herb rice filled the room with a delicious aroma as the grin on Kiba's face widened, if that were possible. "Dude, you know how to cook?" Kiba asked in astonishment. Under the table, Hana kicked him hard, causing Kiba to gasp in pain. Naruto gave a dry laugh. "Since I was 5, Naruto answered with a rueful grin of his own. Kiba's head sunk guiltily, having forgotten Naruto was an orphan for a moment. "So who taught you how to cook?" Kiba asked, this time calmer and with curiosity. "The old man gave me some tips, but for the most part one just burnt myself or the food till I learned," Naruto answered as he put some food on his plate. Naruto looked up from his plate when all he heard was silence, to find that everyone at the table was staring at him. "What?" Naruto asked, wondering if he messed something up. "Wasn't there anyone at the orphanage to help you?" Shino asked in his quiet but steel-like voice. "Haven't been in an orphanage since I was 3, Naruto said with a shrug. "Went to a couple foster homes but always got taken out of them after a few months, and then when I was 4 I was put in an apartment on my own and Chunin checking up on me every few hours till I was 6, Naruto said before taking a bite of his food. Naruto looked down as he heard Guko growling angrily beneath him. The blonde shook his head as he bent down to pat the dog softly. When he looked back up, it was to find that they were still staring at him. "What?" Naruto asked again, this time sure that he'd said something wrong. Hinata took in a quick breath as tears pricked at her eyes. "Man, that's really fucked up," Kiba said quietly. Shino nodded his head in agreement. "I was under the impression that Konoha orphans were better taken care than that," Shino said, a hint of anger in his voice. Naruto shrugged, not at all willing to admit that they probably were better taken care of, that it was just that he was someone that no one wanted, that the foster homes he lived in were run by adults that hated him and wanted him to die. He'd actually lightened up the circumstances quite a bit for their sake and hadn't expected such a reaction with the cleaned-up version. He never mentioned that he'd been forcibly taken away from those homes due to abuse, or that he'd once been locked up in a room for 2 months in one home with a single meal a day brought up to him. He didn't mention that the Hokage executed those found guilty of the said abuse, or that the Hokage put him up in an apartment as a last resort and a way to get Naruto away from any who would harm him. Guko muttered darkly under his breath at the subdued table. Maybe he should pretend he had a stomachache? Surely this was one of the situations Naruto wanted to get away from. "So Naruto, how's your team doing?" Hana asked, leaning her elbows on the table and smiling at the blonde. Guko sighed in relief. "Well, Sakura is working on developing her taijutsu and weapons aim. Her birthday's in a week and a half and she'll be 14. All around she's doing well. Kaka-sensei's working on her genjutsu with her as well. Sasuke's learning how to better control his Sharingan with Kaka-sensei, and he's teaching him some advanced lightning techniques. Sasuke just got out of the hospital 2 weeks ago from our mission to the Land of Snow, so at the moment he's doing some lighter things since Kaka-sensei's not here right now. Kaka-sensei's been doing a lot of high-rank missions lately to make up for the lost Anbu from the sand invasion, so I haven't really seen him that much lately," Naruto explained. Guko nodded his head in agreement. He could definitely attest to that. "So what's Kakashi teaching you?" Kiba asked with a mouthful of pork. Guruko's ears perked up. He too was fairly curious. Naruto chewed slowly. To Guruko it seemed deliberately slow. "Actually, Ero Sennin's been taking over teaching me," Naruto said slowly. "He's been having me practice my summoning and producing the Rasengan faster." "What about you guys?" Naruto asked. Guruko's ears went flat against his head at the explanation. Jiraiya left nearly 4 weeks ago for one of his information gathering trips and wouldn't be back for another week. Naruto just lied again. Surely Kakashi had been helping Naruto with something. Guruko pulled at Naruto's sleeve and growled a little, letting the blonde know he knew he just lied. Naruto stroked the dog's head, refusing to make eye contact with him and gently tugging his slightly wet sleeve from Guruko's mouth. With that topic changer, Kiba went into an animated speech about Team 8's intense training regimen and his own personal newly learned clan jutsu. Naruto smiled and listened intently the whole time, after which it was time to go home. Hana thanked him for the delicious rice and even asked him for the recipe, which Naruto wrote down for her while blushing. Team 7 hated his cooking after all. As Naruto was dong this, Guruko heard Kiba and Shino talking on the couch in the living room. Was it just me, or did Naruto remind you of someone all during dinner? Kiba asked as he stretched his hands over his head and cracked his neck. Yes, he showed a great many characteristics leaning toward a certain teammate. Shino agreed. Kiba snorted. No way, he wasn't acting like you at all, Kiba said. Shino nodded his head in agreement. That is true, considering I was referring to Hinata-san and not myself. Shino said patiently, far used to Kiba's sometimes slow uptake on things. It took Kiba a few seconds to comprehend what Shino said before he burst out laughing. It's so true, Kiba crowed out, holding his ribs. Did you see how hard he was blushing all through dinner? And how he kept his head down almost the entire time. Ha 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 ha, I never thought I'd ever say those two were similar at all. They're like night and day, for God's sake, Kiba said, howling out in laughter. Kiba stopped laughing abruptly and sat up straight, a mischievous smirk gaining ground across his lips. I'll be right back, don't let Naruto go anywhere yet, Kiba told Shino as he ran off to his room. Not long passed before he came clambering downstairs with a camera in hand. Hinata, can you come here for a minute? Kiba shouted out. The petite girl peeked her head from around the corner of the kitchen in confusion before walking into the living room. Guruko cocked an eyebrow at them, wondering what Kiba planned to do. Hey, Hinata, take your jacket off for a moment, okay? Kiba asked hurriedly. WH what? Hinata eeped, the shy girl turning bright red. I want to take a picture of you and Naruto standing beside each other, so I got proof to show the others, Kiba half explained excitedly. WH what? Hinata eeped again, going a shade redder than before, nearly fainting on the spot. Shino sighed tiredly beside Kiba. Kiba noticed that Naruto has been acting out of character all through dinner in a fashion that reminds us of you. He wants to take a picture of you and Naruto to better compare, and at the moment Naruto is not wearing his jacket. Shino said slowly and carefully, understanding Hinata's reaction and attempting to help the poor girl out. Ooh, if Naruto-kun's alright with it, Hinata said, fighting down her blush without success. Perfect, Kiba shouted triumphantly. Naruto, can you come here for a moment? Guruko watched, attempting to suppress a snicker as Naruto finished up writing the recipe and walked into the living room, his bangs falling into his face again, forcing him to shove them behind his ear. Yeah? Naruto asked as he came to stand in the middle of the living room and Hinata pulled off her jacket. Kiba pointed towards a blushing Hinata. Go stand by Hinata so I can take your guy's picture, Kiba commanded. Naruto stared at him in bewilderment and asked, WH what? To this Kiba burst out laughing hysterically, holding his stomach as if it would bust. They even had, ha 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 ha, the same reaction. Kiba shouted through gasps of breath. Shino adjusted his glasses before speaking. It is a natural reaction for anybody with the way that you throw things out there. Bah, whatever, Naruto, just go and stand by Hinata real quick, Kiba said again. Naruto, extremely confused as to what was going on, silently complied. Naruto stood beside a blushing Hinata, who he noticed with extreme irritation was the same height as himself, but nonetheless smiled at her. She smiled back and they turned to the camera, she with her arms in front of her, folded politely like an aristocrat while he had his arms behind him, his body bent forward somewhat like a nervous child. Both with a small smile on their faces and light blushes on their cheeks. Both, purely coincidental, with long black-sleeved shirts and headbands around their necks. Milky moon eyes to clear blue sky orbs and midnight black sky hair to bright yellow sun-kissed locks. Kiba grinned like an idiot as the flash filled the room. I am so showing this to everyone, Kiba shouted maniacally. Hinata blushed while Naruto tilted his head in clear confusion. He turned to Hinata questioningly. I don't get it, Naruto said bluntly. Hinata sighed and shrugged, truthfully not understanding the whole thing herself. There was another flash of the camera and both blinked rapidly to recover from it, unprepared this time. That one was just for the looks on your faces, Kiba said with a snicker. From his position on the floor, Guko let out a barking whine that sounded suspiciously like giggling. On their way home, Guko reminded Naruto that he owed the dog an explanation by tugging on his shirt again. When Naruto continued to ignore him, Guko increasingly became rougher with his tugs till a tiny rip formed on the sleeve of one of Naruto's shirts. Guko, Naruto said irritably, don't do that. I already don't have a lot of clothes, I don't need you tearing the ones I do have apart. Guko growled at him a little, not submitting this time. Naruto sighed tiredly. Look, Kaka-sensei's just been too busy lately, okay? He hasn't had time to train me or help me. And Jiraiya did leave me with instructions to practice those things before he left last month. Naruto said softly. I've got Arrow Sennin, so of course Kaka-sensei's gonna choose to help Sasuke and Sakura instead of me. Besides, I take up a lot more time than the others cause they're a lot smarter than me. They get stuff faster, so it's easy for Kaka-sensei to teach them something quick and then go on another mission. I understand he doesn't have time to show me something. I know he gets frustrated when he's explaining stuff to me. Not as if it's the first time I've been told I'm too stupid to teach. Naruto stopped in his tracks as Guko stared up at him in shock. I've had plenty of teachers tell me that when I ask for help. He never said that exactly, but I'm not so stupid that I can't take a hint. I understand that. I don't mind. It's no big deal. Nevertheless, Naruto hugged Guko tightly against him the whole way home. The dog would swear later that he could feel the crack in Naruto's heart the entire time growing a little bigger.